I want to start by honoring Tina Roth Eisenberg, who started Creative Mornings. All for love. Yeah. So since so many of us in the room are makers, I'm going to give you my quick laundry list of stuff I've made. Let's start here. Make stuff that feels good to make. This didn't always feel good to make. When I was in the flow, it felt good. When I was out of the flow, not so good. Okay, and everything seems cooler when you write it on the back of an envelope. All right, first job, lemonade stand on a dirt road where only about 3 cars a day drove down. It was my first lesson in location. I would never do anything that was location independent. I worked for the Body Shop when I was in my early 20s in the glory days of Anita Roddick, and I learned about corporate social responsibility, and it was my first exposure to triple bottom line. And one of the diamonds that I got from Anita Roddick was to be public about your giving, that anonymous philanthropy does not have the breadth of impact that it can. So when you give, share that you're giving, not from a place of immodesty, but from a place of invitation to other people. I ran a think tank in Washington, D.C. That was super weird. Consulted to the Pentagon on the dynamics of social change and potential water wars. Really strange. I didn't go to college, by the way. So I graduated high school, grade 12 in Ontario. And then when I was in D.C., I used to get asked a lot what my alma mater was. I did not know what the term alma mater was. I had to actually go look it up. There was soap, the summer of soap, because I got rejected from Emily Carr. There was stationery. I started a style consultancy, a soulful style consultancy with a friend. Oprah called because we were writing a book. When Oprah calls you, leverage it. So I was able to raise some money, got some money from some dudes in this town. Let's just take a minute to celebrate the city that we live in. Yeah, how grateful are we to live in Vancouver? Yeah. But it is in this city that I learned that angel investor is an oxymoron. So I got ousted from my own company. There was a creative guy. I got Steve jobbed. And I went on the road. So I left with my BlackBerry, dating myself, and an office chair. And I knew the only one thing that I could do was I could help people start online businesses. So I went around to 16 cities that year. I would go where anybody would have me. You could bring your cats, just get 20, mostly women in a room, and I'll talk to you about how to grow your Twitter following. That turned into a book. I could not get a deal for that book. I couldn't even get an agent to represent me. 6 agents said no to that book. Last week, we checked the numbers. It's sold 111,000 copies. I wrote a digital course called Your Big Beautiful Book Plan on how to get a book deal. In the book, The Firestarter Sessions, I planted a seed in there. So one chapter, it was about desire mapping. And the idea was, I always look at what I create as a collection of albums. So like, what's the tone that the next album is going to take based on this? So I planted the seed for looking at what I call your core desired feelings. I said to my publisher at the time, chapter 4 is the next book. It's called The Desire Map. They thought the title Desire Map was too romantic, too sexy, it was never going to sell. We just checked the numbers on that. 250,000 copies in the world. There's now a coaching program, a facilitators program. There's a planner system, all based on a heart-centered approach to designing your life. I'm going to talk today about our obsession with goal setting. I did candles because I'm obsessed with light. That was a bad idea. There were malas. There was some jewelry licensing. This is all the malas, the jewelry licensing. Fun because I just love the people. The people I wanted to collaborate with made me feel the way I wanted to feel. It was aligned with love for me, but it was also just kind of a lot of ego in there for me about getting out to different markets. Not necessary. I'm a writer. I'm a broadcaster. I'm not a jewelry maker. Bless the jewelry makers. I have a podcast. We operate on a triple bottom line, so everything we do has a philanthropic component to it. We give to V-Day, organization started by one of my heroines, Eve Ensler. You know her from her work creating the vagina monologues. We also give to Charity Water. And we've been keeping a third of our money set aside in an account, waiting for if and when a natural disaster would strike. We would donate that money money to on-the-ground services, but with the Amazon and the world basically being on fire, we've decided to plant as many trees as possible until the day I die. Tattoos, that was fun. Hey, Tina, you should have called me. I would have done Tatley. I want to do tote bags, also silly ideas. Truth bombs, printed things I have a conflicted relationship with because of my love of trees and breathing. And there are 16 of us now. We work virtually in 5 different companies, 15 women, 1 really lucky guy. And one thing I want to start is a collective of so-called influencers. One of my least favorite words. So let me give you just a handful of my least favorite words to consider. Obligation. Switch your relationship to obligation and turn it into choice. Influencers. Please, come on. We're all influencers. And nice and good. Those aren't feelings, actually. Those are plastic emotions. But I'm experiencing an absence of conversation about the world being on fire on Instagram. And I think we need to shake out of our curated realities and step up to serve in a more vocal way. Let's talk about flow. All right, if everybody would close your eyes. Put your left hand right in the center of your chest, aligned with your heart. Your right hand over your left hand. Just take a couple breaths. You want to pump this energy up. So I'm going to suggest a few colors that you can see in your heart center. You breathe in, and that's a light, luminous pink. It's active and it's swirling. It's alive, light pink. And then that color is joined by an opalescent white, milky white. Colors are intermingling, very dynamic and alive. And then a shimmering gold. It's got an electric quality to it. Those colors are swirling, and you breathe into your heart center, and you consider joy, love, compassion, inclusivity, gentleness, and presence. Take a few deep breaths. You come back. Now we're all really here together. Flow is love. Flow is presence. Flow is the stuff of life. It doesn't matter what your paradigm system is. You're getting your ideas from something greater than you. And accessing that is what happens when you're in the flow. And flow for me happens from this center. And when I'm in the flow, I'm including other people in my ideas. There's a gentleness in how the ideas come. And then I engage that lovingness, we engage that presence with our intellect. That's the feminine. We're really here today talking about the divine feminine principle, which everybody has, especially creatives, especially those who identify as creatives with a capital C. And then we engage that with the masculine principle, which is consciousness. So going with the flow is responsive. It's not passive. This isn't a new age concept of just like chillaxing, man, and just like doing what comes your way. Engaging with flow is a tango with the creative force. You have to be alert and relaxed. It's wakeful trust. So you are dancing. There's nothing lazy about it. It's not just about all things coming to you. It's as the great Buddhist Wayne Gretzky said, you skate where the puck is. To access this, it was spoken about, you talked about meditation. I heard that word. Yes. You got to do the stillness sandwich. First be still, then rock and roll, and then end with stillness. So if you begin at the outset of anything by tapping into that heart space, by being still, contemplative, reflective, what are you accessing? The idea fairy is going to give you a call. The muse needs you to be still so she can catch up with you, so you can catch up with her. right? That's like, remember listening to an interview with Charlie Rose and Neil Young, and they were talking about the muse, and Charlie said, so what do you do if you had a dinner party and you get an idea? And he's like, I leave the party. Yeah, that's respecting the muse. You do that, she'll keep coming. You have to be still so she can show up. And then at the end of a project, at the end of the day, at the end of the doing, you want to extract the wisdom out of what you just experienced. That's how you grow. That's how we don't go on to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing mindlessly. Like so much about being a high level, an optimized creative is about living reflectively. Yeah. We each have a signature flow. It's a thumbprint. So I'd love some guesses. How many albums do you think Johnny Cash recorded in his career? Give me some numbers. 43. Thank you. 200. Who said 200? Okay. 10. Give me one more. All right, I'll give it to you. 96. Johnny Cash recorded 96 albums. All right. Led Zeppelin. Any Zeppelin fans? How many albums do you think they recorded? 12? 7? 9. So Johnny Cash, 96 albums. Led Zeppelin, 9 albums. Arguably, different industries of music, different genres, made an equally, to use an overused word, epic impact, right? So are you a Johnny Cash or are you a Led Zeppelin? Are you a Leonard Cohen who would like labor for a year over one poem before he would release it, before it was refined? Or are you more like a Picasso, paint it and next. Gotta get it out of the studio, gotta be done. That style of flow has probably been with you since you were a child. You're a brooder, an applauder. Honor the beauty in that. Honor, I've gone through critical phases where I'm just like, I need to slow down in my making. I want to go deeper, and I always want to be as connected to source as possible. But I'm a Johnny Cash, and I'm cool with that. All right. Flow loves a container. So what's flow without a container? A flood. It's a mess. So just like the feminine principle loves to be held, it loves direction. That love wants to point itself in a particular, it needs to be focused. So for a long time, I used to think that I wasn't very distractible. And it's just occurred to me that as a creative in the last year or so, I'm highly distractible. And the reason I thought I had these superhero capacities of focus was because I'm such a hyper maker. I'm making so much all the time and I'm so prolific. I just thought, well, productive is focus. No, productive is just productive. It doesn't mean you're going in the right direction. So now I'm working more on harnessing things for myself. So I'm going in the direction I want to go in. I'm working with a coach, Shayla Davison, highly recommend her. And the question that I'm working with right now is, when I make a decision, when I decide I'm going to say yes or no to something, the question is this the future that I want to belong to? Because I can commit to something in January that's going to happen in August. I'm like, shit, August happened, it's here. And it all adds up. So what's the future that I want to belong to? I work in 40-minute sprints now. And again, as a creative with a capital C, any kind of time restrictive system, I used to really buckle against. I'm just like, that's going to like totally take me out of my flow. No, because I'm always like, oh, I had an idea. Did you see that cat on Instagram? Oh my God, Rihanna, new makeup line. All just deep. How tall is Jesus? Was Jesus? Like it just, yeah. So now I work in 40-minute sprints. I haven't found the right word because I'm not about sprinting on the block, but 40-minute focus time capsules. And the reason it's 40 minutes and not an hour is because an hour feels too long for me to do anything. And I can also, for 40 minutes, I can block out anybody. I mean, if you're hyperventilating, I take care of you. But I can ignore pretty much any text that comes in for 40 minutes to just go deeply into what I'm focused on. And then the rule is, again, used to be really rule resistant, but discipline can be a tool that sets you free. The rule for me now is that at that 40 minutes, I have to get up and I have to task switch. I dance, I make tea, I breathe, I do something. I go listen, like I go watch Prince videos on YouTube is really what I do. Yeah. And I've batched my days. So I have 2 days a week that are batch days where I do conversations, meetings, phones, Skype, interviews, tasky things. I'm super open and available. And so that's on a Tuesday and a Thursday. And the other days of the week are deep work days. And then for those 3 days, I'm concentrating on the same project. Oh, my brain loves it. Flow stirs up your shit. Because what's the opposite of flow? What's the opposite of flow? Stagnation, control. So if you have control issues, anybody? Anybody got control issues? Flow can be very disruptive. And because flow is generated from the heart, where joy lives, and inclusivity, and compassion, and generosity, that can feel like a foreign, tragically discombobulating experience for most of us, for some of us, at some points in our lives. Flow, being in the flow is so much about trust and learning about, your inherent nature of stability and resiliency. So when you learn, when you're growing your muscle to trust, get a therapist. Ego fucks with your flow. Ego is divisive. Ego doesn't want to expand. Ego loves us versus them, you versus me. Ego loves competition because it delineates things. Ego wants itself to be centered out, to be strong, to feel special. So if you are riding on your glory days, if your language is often the lexicon of complaint, which is past base, if you are still milking the same gimmicks you had 10 years ago, you're way out of your flow. And part of being creative, and I'll talk later about leadership, is being willing to evolve in public, being willing to change your ideas. And I hear this a lot with coaches. Who here is a coach? Okay. This were LA, everybody, double, yeah. Let's just say service providers who want to go in a different direction. They want to change what they're offering their people. And they don't want to lose their existing clientele. You know what? That's death. That's death to your creative spirit and to you growing as a person and moving towards your fulfillment. And we also have to trust the people that we serve, that they want something new and deeper from us. And we also want to start attracting to us people who are resonating more deeply with the world that we want to create. So change your gimmicks. Yeah, kill your darlings, and you get back in the flow. The body longs for flow. Embodiment practices go hand in hand with optimized creativity. Breathing, the stillness sandwich, movement. I feel you can't really create anything and sustain it if you are not coming from an embodied place. Okay, honor the ebb between the flow, the ebb and the flow. So we live in a hyper-productivity obsessed society. It's all metrics. It's how much we accomplished. Fuck the Fitbits. It's killing us. I don't think it's helping our health. It's not. Is that really adding to our mental health? Maybe it is. Bless if it is. But I grew up on a farm, and there were times, there were seasons, there were years when you would focus on 1 acre at a time, and you would burn it. It was so powerful and dramatic, the burning of the fields. And you would let that land sit fallow for a year. You need to be fallow It's when the times when you don't have ideas, things are stirring within you. You're expanding, you're resting. And if you identify as a recovering workaholic, as I do, and I say that with great gravitas, you might have to trick yourself and tell yourself that I will be more productive if I rest. What you're really telling yourself, which is why it's not optimal, what you're probably telling yourself is, I will be of more value if I rest and I'll be stronger later. That'll help get you there. But what we really want to be doing is resting, because that's what needs to be done. Flow only moves forward. It never moves backwards. So it's not obsessed with the past. It's not hooked on what he said, they said. It's really not that interested in competition at all. Everybody here is a leader. Everybody is teaching. We're all teaching. The question is, what are you teaching? Are you teaching about community? Are you teaching about presence? Are you teaching about acceptance? Are you teaching about discernment? Are you teaching kindness? Are you teaching quality? Are you teaching restriction? Are you teaching obsession? Are you teaching gentleness? Yeah. I think our job, I'm going to get super esoteric here for a minute. I think our job as having signed up to be on this planet right now is to clear the pain from our beings, the illusions that we are not worthy, so that more love can come through us, so that we can be conduits of inclusion and connection and change. That is the task of attunement. And our job as leaders is to be attuning to ourselves and where our creativity comes from. That's up to you to define, so that we can attune to each other. The flow is generous and generative. Let's think about the earth for a minute. The ultimate in the divine principle that gives and gives. We are all here right now because of the generosity of this ecosystem that we live within. I used to look at it as, I've always considered myself as an environmentalist, especially starting my early days in the body shop. And I had a paradigm that I lived on the earth, and I'd be respectful of that. And then as I went through a few hardships that softened me, I thought, I live with the earth. I need the earth now. I'm really clear now that I live because of the earth. And if that's true, and if the earth is ceaselessly giving to us in the most generous and forgiving way, in the context of the relationship we have with her, and what we've done in the name of creativity and communion and connection and commerce and greed and brokenness. If I'm still here because she's still giving to me, then I'm committed to being in the flow. And I know that the flow is generative. When you are coming from your heart center, there's always the next idea. And it's too late in the day for our creative intentions to only include ourselves. This is enough with ego-driven bucket lists that are hyper-material. So the intention with optimized creativity is that all of our visions consider all elements and everybody in that. What resources do we need to pull this off? First of all, why do we want to pull it off? What are the resources? And how can your happiness bring somebody else along with you? Yeah, and when we come from that place of that inclusivity, that is the gentleness of the flow, that is ceaseless, we only make good things and we only move forward. Yeah. To the flow. Thank you. Thank you.
That was awesome. Thank you. Can you speak about disruption?
Oh, let's add that to the list of one of my least favorite words. Although I did say flow can be disruptive. So let's talk about language, like disruptive, hacking, and crushing. Yeah, how's all that feel? Doesn't feel good to me. Why? I understand it. I understand the desire and the orientation to disrupt. It just, there's a little flavor of divisiveness in it. And that energy of like, we're going to kill the competition. And it's like, sustainable change is about taking what's working currently and integrating that into the future. And so somehow we need to honor what's thriving and bring in history and bring in, inclusive results. And yeah, if you're disrupting for the sake of disrupting, it's shallow and it's not going to be sustainable. Yeah, and it just feeds into our obsessive, we have a disorder with goal chasing. It's really tied to our identity. Yeah, and my experience has been having, I've now had a conversation with thousands of people about their relationship to goal setting, and high performance athletes and high net worth people, and when it was just all about the goal and it wasn't attached to making a contribution or what was deeply fulfilling them, you can get the goal and a sense of emptiness. And can we talk for a minute about manifesting and creating?
Ooh, yeah.
So manifesting is it's a mindset. Energy follows thought. You continue to think the same thoughts every day in a systemic methodology, you're going to manifest a lot of stuff. What's missing in a lot of conversation, especially in books about hacking and that hyper productivity approach to things, is the heart and meaningfulness and purposefulness in that. So I think back to the conversation of it can be, if we're just doing things to disrupt and hit the goal just to hit the goal and arriving there empty, if we're not including each other when we get there, just more emptiness. Yeah. Hi. Oh, sorry.
Hi, thank you. I'm just wondering how you tap into the state of flow. I know for each person might be different, but let's say if you wake up in the morning and you want to tap into that state, how do you go about doing that?
Yeah, so gratitude is the most direct, consistent, and certain way to get into flow every time. And if you are having a really dark day, if you are high anxiety, if everything's falling apart around you, gratitude just brings you back here right now. It's just like, I'm grateful I have teeth. I mean, whatever you can reach for in that moment, and then it extends out from there. And this is scientifically proven that it changes your brain chemistry, which affects your heart rate. Actually, what the science is showing now is actually the focus on the heart, the electromagnetic frequency of the heart that is informing the brain. Ta-da! It's the other way around. So back to heart, breathing. I really love the work of the Heart Math Institute. And I've got one of those little things I hook to my earlobe, and I can just breathe, and I see my heart rate variability come down into what's referred to as cohesion. Yeah? So every day for me, I begin with gratitude.
In what space? Is it at home?
Oh, as soon as I open my eyes, I lie down. I'm still in bed. And I just say, I'm grateful to be alive. And I thought my gratitude would never be that primal and that basic. I thought it had to be so much more lofty. But I've been through some stuff, some dark nights. And in those dark nights, I was just like, I'm here. Something is breathing me. And that something is going to help me take the next breath. And if I just focus on that gratitude and being here, I will be of service. And, I really think that everything we're craving in life can be found in service. Yeah. You're welcome. And you got to meditate. There's no if. Can we just talk? Everybody here brushes their teeth? Yeah? You got to meditate. You have to clean your brain. Yeah.
Sorry, we've got another question right behind you.
Hi.
Danielle. Hi.
You know I'm a huge fan, and I've been following you for a long time. And when I first started following you, you said that balance was a myth. And I think from your more recent writings that
Yeah, I was
may have
wrong.
changed. Tell me more about what
Yeah.
you think balance is now.
Yeah. Balance is essential now. But it's more, here's what I know about is like, you can only do yoga, you can only write a book, you can only walk on a balance beam because you're always off center. You bring yourself back, bring yourself back, bring yourself back. And I mean, there's chapters and blog posts and there's things I've said on stage that I renounce, that I'm embarrassed that I ever said, and that I want to burn. I mean, I want to burn everything I wrote before 11:30 last night. So I think I still love the work of David White when it comes to the conversation around balance, which is it's more of a symphony. So I think what happens is we get into this ideology where we think, I got to give a third of my life to myself and my family, I got to give a third of my life to work, and I got to give a third to like serving the world or whatever it is. And life is just never this clean, easy piece of pie. There are going to be times in your life where you better make your significant relationship and your family front and center, and everything else is in sabbatical mode. And there's times in your life where it's time to build. It's time to construct things, and your kids can eat pizza, gluten-free and dairy-free. But I noticed that just having that attitude about pshaw on life balance, it really took a physical toll on me. And I think that was my work addiction speaking. And I take it all back. Yeah.
And so what do you say now to yourself about balance?
Well, I have a set of words that I say constantly to myself, even in yoga class, when I work, when I run, it's like love, radiance, beauty, wisdom, truth, joy, balance, harmony. And even before I speak, I say, I am those things. And then I say, you are those things. And then I say, we are that. And I ask for balance. May my body be restored to balance, because any illness that I, have created is me being out of balance. And it's usually, if I look really deep underneath my consciousness, all illness for me is a fear of the future. Yeah. It's pain that I have not processed, and I fear that pain will continue in the future, and that crystallizes into some kind of imbalance in my body. Yeah, great question. You should talk about other things I denounce of myself. Yeah.
Any men? Any special men in the room with questions?
This is the most dudes I've had in a long time,
right?
In one room.
But these are high quality men.
Doesn't sound right. Yeah.
Creative Mornings brings top drawer men. And women, Rona.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not a man. I loved that you talked about the different styles of flow. And you mentioned you have your team 16, 17 people. And I wondered if you have any key things for what does flow look like collectively in a team?
Yeah, so I'm going to give you two metaphors, and I have to give all credit to this. Again, I mentioned her before, Chayla Davison, our coach. So she's an integral coach. She worked one-on-one deeply with everybody on our team, with the core team, the North American team, and with me, and I've done multiple programs with her. And she gifts us these metaphors for our current way of being, which I refer to as our fucked up way of being, and our new way of being, which, our ideal way of being. And our current way of being is we are the earnest Quidditch team. So for those of you not familiar with Quidditch and Harry Potter, so the metaphor is like we're keen, and there's this magic element to how we show up, and there's some danger involved because you can get bludgeoned, and there's the golden snitch, and that's Danielle's next idea, and we're going that way now, and just yesterday she wanted to do this, and now she wants to do that. And it's exhausting. We're on the clock, and it's performative. There's always an audience. And it was killing my adrenals and my team. And the way that what we are emerging into, evolving into with great intention is we are cohesive family farmers. And the difference there is that people come to the farm And if that's your stand, that people come to you for your service, it's not that way for all of us, obviously, it changes how you market. So I don't need Facebook ads. People come to the farm. It's word of mouth. I'm interested in building community. I'm interested in resonance. This is why I only speak at certain places. I'm not here to sell anybody on anything. I don't even know if that answered your question, but resonance. So for me, I'm in the flow when I want to sing to the choir and with the choir. If I am trying to sell anything, it's just janky and uncomfortable, and I exert too much energy. Yeah. Easy is productive and more fun. And when you're more fun, your ideas come more gracefully.
I'm going to break the mold and be the guy.
Be the guy.
So I know what it's like to be in flow. Work till like 4 or 5 in the morning, you just completely energized and everything disappears. But I also slip out of it.
Yeah.
And then I have a blind spot where I start berating myself that I can't snap back into it. And if you can help me see the blind spot.
So even seeing that you're out of flow is an act of consciousness. So we'll celebrate that moment. I'm out of flow. What a badass am I for being able to have the witnessing mind that I'm out of flow. That acknowledgement of your capacity to observe in that moment, that's a loving act. You're going to chill. You're going to get back in the flow. Yeah. And gratitude, everything. And you don't need to be in the flow all the time. It's impossible. You wouldn't be here. You wouldn't be on the ground. I mean, anybody who's embodied, who says they're enlightened, I don't buy it. Yeah. Do that. Meditate all day and figure out how to pay your mortgage, and then maybe, yeah. Yeah.
I think we have time for one more question. Oh, there's one in the back there.
Hi.
What did you mean by the triple, double, or the
Your triple bottom line.
Yeah.
So you're factoring finance, you're factoring society, and you're factoring in the planet, the ecosystem. So that everything you create, all the resources that you draw on and that you offer, look at all of those things. What are we taking and what are we giving? Yeah, it's just not, it is not about blind obsessive growth. You know, I want to talk more about, use what I've got to talk. Like, here's the campaign I want to start on social media. Yeah, I've already started to plant the seed. A no new buy holiday season. We need something that we're doing in our immediate lives that's fast, that's now, that's actually going to create positive change for resource usage, and is going to piss off our family at the dinner table in a way that they're going to change. Where was I going with that? I didn't eat a croissant. I didn't have enough. I'm having a protein moment. What was the question? About Christmas. Yeah. Resources. Triple bottom line. That's it.
Mark?
Chocolate. Yeah, I need some
Hi, Danielle.
chocolate. Can you hook me up?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mark has one last question, I think.
Thank you for this, and thank you for all you do in this community.
Yeah,
No. Shh, just
it's
take
a whole.
it.
You're welcome. Thank you. I suck at that stuff. What question do you wish we asked you?
Oh, what question do I wish that you'd asked me? How did I get through my darkest time? Yeah. Are you asking me now?
How did you get through your darkest time?
Friendship. Yeah. Yeah, friendship. You don't isolate. Don't isolate. Don't isolate. Be together. The future is together. The future is together. We only get where we must go together. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's thank Danielle one more time.